Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Piece of Us podcast. My name is Aaron, and I'm going to be your host today. I am joined by my beautiful wife, Crystal.
Hi, everyone.
And I'm also joined by my best friend, Joe.
Hey, everybody.
We are also joined by an awesome, amazing guest, and her name is Britt. Welcome, Britt.
Hi, thank you.
So I talked to Britt the other day and it was amazing. So she is a licensed therapist and she actually does a lot of work in the jail system with rehabilitation and just all kinds of things. And I learned so much just from having our brief conversation. So I'm really excited to have her on the podcast today and learn from her. I feel like there's so much to learn from everybody. And so I just got back from Georgia and Savannah, Georgia. And I literally just got back last night and a terrible flight, really quick. I had a layover flight and my flight got delayed. My first flight got delayed. So I missed the layover flight. So literally I had to go to like 3 different cities in order to get home for this podcast today. It was a nightmare yesterday and I was so over it by the end of the day. But I have to say, Georgia was beautiful, like absolutely. And the history and the stories behind like each building and each thing was like so incredibly cool. A lot of ghost stories though, just so you know.
We are super glad to have you here and glad you made it home.
They say never to talk to ghosts there, otherwise they'll follow you home. So I made sure that I did not talk to any, so none followed me home today.
That's
Unless
scary.
we start hearing anything in the background or if something starts moving in the background, guys, it's not my fault. I swear I didn't talk to them. All right, Britt. So really quick before we get into like your story and just a little bit more about you, how is Boston? Is there any cool stories or anything that you can share from there?
Oh, I love it. So I used to live way more closer to the center of Boston, not Boston proper, but just outside, where I would always go in there, just traveling for different restaurants, different events in Boston Commons. And I mean, the people there, everyone's so nice, so wonderful. And you really just have an event going on that you could just walk through the city and be like, what is going on over here? And then just go join in and have like the best time of your life. So I just love that Boston's such a lively city.
Oh, I love that. I want to go visit there so bad. Even after seeing Georgia, like everyone was so nice. And I'm like, I don't know if in Arizona we kind of all just like stick to ourselves, but there, like every Uber driver was like, oh my gosh, let me tell you about this. And blah, blah, blah. And they're going on the entire ride. And I'm like, wow, the Ubers in Arizona don't talk to you. Like you get in or they're like, hi. And you're like, hey. And then that's it. The entire ride is usually quiet. Not in Georgia. Everyone was so friendly and you just felt like you were like best friends with everybody. I loved it so much.
That's Southern hospitality.
Oh my gosh. I miss it.
What's the best time of year to visit Boston?
Ooh, the fall. So beautiful in the fall.
All the trees changing color.
Exactly. And that you see so many different like theaters, so many different things on the harbor going on. Everyone's getting excited for the kids to go back to school. So there's a bunch of back to school, just different events. It's definitely the fall is so much fun.
Oh, that's amazing. So tell us a little bit about like your history and what you do as a career and how you went about doing that.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, currently I am a therapist in a medium security men's jail. Before that, I used to work doing adolescent and family work. So I've worked in acute residential facilities. And before that, for a few years, I've spent working directly with the foster care system and folks who are involved with DCF and working on either keeping their kids in their home with them or trying to reunify with their families. So I've kind of done a little bit of everything, some trauma, outpatient therapy. So I've had a lot of fun. I think I really just got into this. I've always kind of loved interacting with people and just being there, not necessarily as a support, but just being around people and just being a part of like their life and just having those interactions. And I think it really started back in like 6th grade for like a little career day. I was like, wow, therapists get to spend time with children playing like Candyland and like just having so much fun. I want to play games for the rest of my life. Not realizing that included talking, but then they use games to make you feel comfortable. So I just kind of ran with it and I was like, you know what? I think this is the career for me. I absolutely love it. And I want to be able to be a part of someone's, life, even if it's that, for a few weeks, few months, however long they need, just so they can be the best person they want to be. So through that, I went to undergraduate school for 4 years and grad school for 2 years before I able to enter the workforce.
That's amazing. I've always wanted a like especially a trauma therapist on the podcast because there's so much to learn there and so many techniques and just all of that. So you said you worked with foster care system. Did you do trauma therapy for them?
Yes, one of the roles I did do was through a grant through the state that provides free services for folks who have experienced any sort of trauma, who have been removed from their homes and need that therapy while they're going through whatever it is that their family's going through. So I was doing like that traditional outpatient once a week in an office, trauma therapy, working through different traumatic experiences with people, helping them process it. So yeah, I've done some of that as well.
Is there any techniques that helped with getting kids to feel comfortable to opening up and kind of going through those feelings?
Absolutely. One of the things is you never want to push someone too far, too fast. And you really, especially when it comes to children, want to focus on them making sure that they're comfortable with you. Because there is a study that shows that, 70% of how therapy works is just due to the relational aspect of the therapy, and the other 30% is the actual interventions that you're using. So without that trust, without that feeling of safety and that feeling of being able to be comfortable and have, that confidentiality, it's really, not going to make any sense for a kid to want to open up about their traumatic experiences. So definitely just take that time to bond with them, get to know them outside of the trauma, get to know their favorite foods, what they like to do, who they are, just about their personality, make them feel like that you are truly there for them and not just some big scary clinician from this big scary agency that they're being brought to. Rather, it's like you're on a team with them and you're there for them.
I love that. And that is actually something that, not knowing that it was like a technique like that, but that's something that doing foster care over the years, we implement in our house. When a foster kid first comes in, a lot of people ask, like, how do you make them feel comfortable? Or how do you get them to like start processing their feelings and open up? And I always say the very first thing we do is we just have fun together. We just build that bond and we just start laughing together and enjoying the time and letting them know that, hey, we're here. And then when those tough times come about and when those feelings start coming out, we already have a relationship foundation there. And then I feel like it's easier to work through the hard times and kind of start processing feelings and going through all of that.
So you never know what someone goes through before they walk through your door and what their life story is. So just knowing that they even took that first step to come see you can be so difficult for so many people. So just making them have that fun can just be so, so beneficial to them. I love that.
I definitely have seen this over the years. We've had a lot of our kids have gone through therapies and been with different therapists. And I've noticed, I wouldn't say they were bad therapists, but I've noticed that sometimes the kids definitely get more from certain therapists. And it seems like those therapists are more connected with the kids and they have that more of a relationship and they've spent more time with things outside of it than than the traumas themselves. They've spent the time getting to know the kids and I think that's amazing.
With your experience, Joe, with like going to therapy and stuff, did you feel like certain therapists you connected more with that tried to care about individually, or would you say, like, what was your experience?
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of, as Britt, you had mentioned a little bit about it, people going and being willing to open up, feeling comfortable enough. I was going through really, really bad spot, hit pretty much a lowest point in my life and was like, okay, I need to get some help. So I knew I needed to go talk. So I kind of had a little bit of willingness to do that. And I remember the first person that I went and talked to, she was not very nice at all. Like it was pretty, it was, I almost wanted to just be like, forget it. I'm not even going to do therapy. But I was like, no, they can't all be like this. And so after the very first meeting with her, I was like, absolutely not. I'm going somewhere else. I had a coworker at the time who she had kind of mentioned, she's like, you may not click with the first person, and that's okay. It's not anything wrong if you decide, hey, I'm not comfortable with this individual, go find another one. And so immediately right after I left the office, I was like, no, I'm definitely not going back there. I don't want to give up, but I do want to go, shop around, I guess, for lack of a better term on it. But I did look around and was actually very blessed that the next couple of people that I did come across actually were very, very good. And I was able to feel very comfortable with them, and I knew I needed to open up, and there was a part of me that I did not want to open up. Bert, I'm sure with your work you get that sometimes where people are like, nope, I don't think so. But they did a great job of kind of making me feel like it was a safe space where I could talk about things and no judgments. And you had kind of talked about just that relationship building that was there a little bit, and it was like, wow, once I found the right people, it's awesome. I actually would look forward to going to therapy after that. But judging off the first person, I was ready to just give up. So yeah, it's hit or miss sometimes.
So don't give up out there. If you just haven't found the right therapist, do not give up. Keep trying until you find that perfect match. So so you went from that to rehabilitation in a jail. So what is that experience like?
It is one of the most diverse jobs I've ever held. So you need to be very quick on your toes. You could be going from just a routine follow-up where you're just checking in on someone, making sure that, they're still stable and that they're taking care of themselves. And the next thing you could be doing is having an intake for someone who's psychotic and maybe very behaviorally dysregulated. And so you really need to be able to switch gears very fast. And of course, it is a jail, so there's that inherent potential that there could be risks of danger to staff as well in there. So you're always having to make sure that you're very aware of everything. So it's just this very, very fast paced environment that you have to be, very on your feet for and go many different directions. But one of the things I like best is exactly that you're always doing something different from one person to the next. 5 minutes later could be totally different. So I do a lot of intakes where I'm just getting to know the person, just getting some information about them, developing a treatment plan with them, as well as helping them make sure that they are getting proper medications and mental health supports for their mental health, starting when they're in jail. So that way we can have them be connected to services when they're out in the community as well. So that way we can hopefully reduce any chance of them coming back to us.
I think that's huge because I was watching, oh gosh, what was it the other day? I saw a show the other day and they were talking about how a lot of people kind of don't understand. Like, for example, if someone is homeless due to a mental illness, a lot of people assume, oh, it's drugs or it's this or that, but there's so much more to it than that. And a lot of people will end up in jail because of some kind of mental illness. And I really love and appreciate that you're out there helping those figure out their mental health so that they don't rejoin back in. That has to be really rewarding.
Absolutely. I mean, I love when I see someone come in. So one thing that is unique about my jail is we do have the regional inpatient unit. So other jails will send referrals to us for folks who they're not able to stabilize with their mental health team, and we'll try to evaluate them and stabilize them. So we do get a lot of people who are just maybe arrested for the first time, having a severe mental health issue, and they're coming in at some of the lowest points in their life. They might be homeless, they might not have supports, friends, family. They might be losing their job, losing their apartment because of their coming to jail. And so one of the things that I love about it is seeing how they are in the beginning when maybe we do admit them to the inpatient unit and help them stabilize, and then seeing them again few months, few weeks, even down the line, and they're like, "Hey, Brittany, I'm doing so much better. I'm taking care of myself. I've been speaking to my supports. I've gotten connected to this resource. I'm not having any of these symptoms that were very debilitating." So I love it. I love seeing people when they come in versus when they're on their way out.
That's super awesome. I feel like maybe in the jail system it might be hard sometimes because maybe if you never see that person again, they go, sometimes there's going to be recidivism where they're going to come back again. And that's probably a little bit disheartening because it's like, oh, they're still having troubles, whatever their difficulties are. That's why they're back. But if you don't see somebody again, I guess in some ways that's probably a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Actually, on some of the last meetings I have with someone as they're, wrapping up their sentence, I always say to them, you can do it. I know you can. You have the skills, you have the knowledge, you have the drive. I really hope I do not have to see you again. And like they always kind of give me a chuckle and they're like, "Oh, you won't. I've had enough of this." I'm like, "I hope so. I hope I never have to. I wish you the best."
I love that the jail that you're in offers those services because I know there are quite a few out there that don't offer any kind of help or any kind of. I have somebody very close to me, a family member who's been in and out of jail several times, and he has never gotten the services in place to really prevent or help him regulate all of that to be able to not go back in the system. So I really applaud Massachusetts in your area that is offering that.
Thank you. I love it. And like I said, we are so fortunate that we even work with outside agencies to refer them, to continue services. Because without that, I mean, really, it becomes so difficult for people who have such limited access when they come in to get that access when they leave. So I think it's so important.
Now, with the we were talking a little bit before we started, but with you're working in a, as you mentioned, kind of a difficult environment with some difficult people, things like that, and there has to be some amazing, just feel good moments when you can see something clicking for people, realizing, wow, this isn't a lifestyle I have to live my whole life. I can, I can make changes. Some people can make the changes to get out of that horrible loop or that spot they're in. But it's also, you're going to see a lot of difficult things. How hard is it for uh, a mental health professional having to deal with a lot of that negativity? Is there a lot of burnout that you get?
Absolutely. I find every couple of months I kind of go through this lull where I'm feeling like, I'm just spinning my wheels and I have to sort of step back and reevaluate. Okay, I understand this is a very difficult population that I'm working with. There is a lot of recidivism, unfortunately. And so there are some very challenging behaviors that we do have to deal with, just on top of, the setting in and of itself with administration and trying to work with many different departments and all be on the same page and work together. So it can be very difficult at times. So I do love to take a step back, reevaluate my self-care, reevaluate, am I sticking to my principles, if this is why I entered the field in the first place, and this is, my hopes as a professional and how I choose to make sure that I'm behaving towards my clients and staff, and am I given the proper treatment to the best of my abilities? And usually that kind of helps me make sure I'm staying, within my professional goals and really doing the best I can. And I know that it's also up to the individuals that I'm working with themselves to also put that effort in and to be able to help working on their concerns too. So I think it's kind of a little bit of a push and pull in this type of environment. But really, it comes down to a lot of self-care.
That's super important.
What would you say your number one go-to thing is for like recharging? So like for Joe, I know his is going out into the wilderness and camping or doing something. What's yours?
Oh, I love this question. So I actually do try every quarter, every 3 or 4 months of the year to pick a new adventure to embark on. So I know a bunch of your guys' videos, especially with Max lately with the motorcycle license.
Yes.
So in the fall, I decided to get my motorcycle license. I've done whitewater rafting. I know Joe's happy about that.
Max in the
Max is
background.
Max in the
cheering in the
background is
background.
cheering
Cheering as
you
well.
on.
Love it. And I'm currently taking drum lessons. So I just love to try to keep learning something new and just do a different adventure every few months that I wouldn't normally do in my day-to-day life. That just brings me joy.
I love that.
I kind of have this mantra that I say is, you get old because you stop having fun. You don't have to stop having fun because you get old. And just being able to go out and do something, mix it up, keep life interesting, I think kind of sometimes puts everything else into perspective and gives you something fun to hope for and to look forward to and things like that. So even if everything's not going great, at least you have something that can be like, hey, this is a way to put some of my energy into this and, maybe channel some of that into something else. And that's great. I love to hear that you're just mixing it up and doing things like that.
So have you gotten a bike yet, or are you just in the beginning phases?
I'm a little apprehensive to get a bike yet because I'm admittedly not the best driver of a motorcycle, but I think I'll eventually get there. I want to find a safe bike that's not too fast and not too heavy. So if I do have a little spill, I can pick the bike up.
Safety is super important. Motorcycles are not the safest toys out there, definitely. But I love to
Yes.
hear that you're not only are you worried now, it sounds like the mental aspect of things, but also your physical safety. So that is excellent because your physical and mental well being, I think, are both equally important there.
Absolutely. And Max even might have talked about that in his class. I saw him hold up his little card. I was like, I took the same class. I have the same card. So he probably knows, like, they talk about choosing like an appropriate bike style for you that's safe and fun. So he should know all about that.
Yeah, he's shaking his head in the background. Yes, he knows. That's cool. What is your way to recharge, Aaron?
Sadly, it's video games, and it's been an issue for me in the past because I've sometimes taken it overboard. But I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to a lot of recently. Joe and I have done or tried to do a lot of bucket list items. I want to try new things. I want to go new places and try new things to see if there's something that does recharge me better than video games that I can latch onto and start doing that has the same effect, but is, I don't know, healthier for my body and my mind.
Oh,
Not saying video games are bad.
I don't think video games are bad as long
No.
as it doesn't turn from
When you
an
take
escape to an addiction.
exactly, when you take it too far and you spend too much time or you let it interfere with the relationships in your life, then definitely it becomes a problem. So
What about you, Crystal?
I'm still working on like I don't know what recharges me, to be honest. I know when I'm having like a lot of anxiety or I'm feeling like really like inside, I know just going for a walk and like getting out. I do think fresh air and that kind of just like taking a second in the slower environment. It's one of the reasons why I loved living in a small town for a little bit. Is I really enjoyed like the slower paced lifestyle, if you could, and where you could just like we could go hiking and we could just like get out and just like take a minute to like breathe, because I feel like I'm always so busy and like this kid needs this and this is going on here, and I feel like I'm constantly like that it's just like taking a second just to like refocus. Also getting up at 5 a.m. I feel like between like 5 and 7 a.m. when the kids start getting up and all of that is like my time to really just be to myself and kind of reflect on my goals and kind of just recenter myself. And so I think that's, yeah, one of the ones I do.
I'm a little jealous. Like I said when we were talking before, I've always wanted to go to Boston, and to think about what the trees might look like there during the fall. That's just huge. Here in Arizona, it just gets so hot, and it's not always the most fun walking environment.
We don't have seasons here.
Yeah, rumor has it in some places when the weather changes, the colors on the trees are different colors. Ours are kind of greenish brown
Always.
365 days a year. So
I love the leaves up here. I mean, we have people from all over the country that come up to here, especially New Hampshire, just to look at the trees.
Oh, that's amazing.
sounds like we may have ourselves a little mini trip here.
Right? That sounds really fun.
So, Britt, I've got a question for you. With Crystal and Aaron, when they've done a lot in the foster system, and they've come across a lot of, most kids that are in the foster system are going to have some different traumatic events in their background. That's why they have ended up in the system, whether it's they've seen something or something's been done to them. And I know sometimes they have a little bit of a hard time because they really start to really get invested in the children's, well-being, and they start building that bond to the kids. And then sometimes the kids, they see the kids backslide, or maybe the kids go back. They have to go back to their less than ideal situation, and they can't do anything about it. And it's kind of difficult for them. I see sometimes where it's like, wow, it really hurts them. And do you find in your work that you're seeing people, do you get yourself really invested into their well-being? Do you find it hard sometimes to separate yourself from that, to kind of let it go, knowing, hey, I can't help everybody?
Absolutely. Fantastic questions. I mean, we talk about this as providers all the time, especially when you're working with youth and families. 'Cause really, in the work I've done, the level of intensity is I could be spending about 4 hours a week with these families. And you really become part of the family. I mean, you're in their home those 4 hours a week. They let you in to just the most intimate parts of their lives. And usually things that they don't want anyone to know about, that they're maybe embarrassed or ashamed to talk about. So it's a really deep relationship that you build with the parents, with the children, with the other providers. And sometimes it just pulls on your heart when you see either a child who's maybe not making the progress that you really want them to be making, or you know that they can be making, or if you see a parent who's, maybe falling back into old habits, which led to a child being removed in the first place. And sometimes it can feel so, so disheartening. But we just have to know, like, there are reasons why these behaviors existed, and there are reasons why maybe someone isn't making the progress that, we want them to be making. And sometimes it's just a matter of stepping back and being like, this is this person's life that we're working with. And really we need to be exploring what are those barriers, what is causing this slip, and how can we support them to get back to where they need to be, because usually it tells us that we're missing something. As a provider, if we see someone slipping back, then we've missed a step along the way that we need to go back and reevaluate and resupport them on.
I would think it would be really hard because you get so invested that you just want to be like, ah. Like when I was in in Georgia the other day, I had this Uber driver, and we got in the car. We had way too many suitcases. We were there for 2 days. I know, and all of our suitcases wouldn't fit in his car, so we had to hold some on our lap. And he's like, what were you here for? And I was like, just 2 days. And yeah. Anyways, so we get in the car and he's kind of laughing about it, and he looks over at us and he's like, so can I tell you something? And he's like, without overstepping. And I was like, sure. Like, you never know what someone's going to say when they say that. But I was like, sure. And he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, I went on 2 dates with this girl, and then she had some stuff happen in her life and whatnot. And now she asked to move in. And he's like, I thought I had a big house. It was 1,200 square foot. And then when she moved in, I didn't have a big enough house. But he's like, anyways, her stuff's everywhere and whatnot. And he's like, now I can't date other girls and I don't know what to do, because I don't think they were exclusive or anything. Right. And so he's telling me this whole story and this whole thing. And we get driving down the road, and like, I'm so invested in the story, and I'm like, okay, so what are you going to do? Are you going to be exclusive with her? Are you going to blah, blah, blah? And like, we have this whole conversation, and I was so invested in this guy's story that I was like, I think I need to like follow up with you in a few months and see if it worked out. Cause he's like, I don't know if this is going to work out for me. I don't know. And I was like, but I get so invested, and I've done that with so many kids in, foster care. They come into our home, and then I know they're going back to family, and we can't necessarily have contact unless the family says it's okay. And it's one of the hardest things to like constantly wonder in the back of your mind, like, how did that end up? Like, where are they now? Like, I get so tempted to look kids up once they turn 18 and like see where they're at. Like, I stalk them on Facebook a little bit. I will lie, but not gonna lie there. But I have one girl in particular, and it was our very first foster placement, who I just got. We were attached. She lived with us for 2 years and 2 months, so we were really really attached to her. And when we found out she was going back, and I still to this day feel like the caseworker messed up and that she shouldn't have gone back. But I remember taking her stuffed animals and writing like my phone number really small on the bottom of all her stuffed animals. I wrote 911. I taught her how to call 911 if something happens. Like, I was so worried about her. She was 6 years old at this point, but and I still worry about her every single day. So do you have certain cases and certain things that like you constantly think about, or like are tempted to go and stalk on social media or look up? I know as a professional you probably can't do that, but I'm curious.
But the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, I can think of from my very first internship I've ever had, people that I still think about and I still wonder where they are. And just, I really wish I could just magically pop into their life one day and be like, tell me everything. How are you? And there's so many people where I'm like, you are such a bright person and you have a bright future. And I want to see that for you. Or other people where I'm like, I'm really concerned and I really, really hope that things change for you. And I really want to know. And even if it's a difficult week and we're still working with that person and that client's having a hard time, I still think about them between sessions and I'm still worried about them. And when they're happy and like doing great, I'm still celebrating their successes in between sessions, being like, yes, go, you can do it. So we absolutely still think about them. We still want to know.
That's really interesting.
So it's not just doing, helping the people this way. It's not just a job to you. It sounds like it is something that's a passion, which is really neat. Probably makes it a little more difficult too because you're not completely just disinterested, but it also probably helps you be better at your job.
I think so. I mean, even when clients give me feedback and they're like, hey, we've been doing this, and I know that you've been trying this intervention and it hasn't, quite felt comfortable to me or hasn't quite worked. I want that feedback. I want to be able to look at that and be like, okay, let me look at other interventions I can use. Let me evaluate my style and making sure that I'm able to provide the best services for you. And I love it. I always learn something from my clients. I mean, whether it's random fun facts, so I'll be real good at trivia one day, or just learning about like myself, the world, how to do my job better. I mean, that is the most invaluable feedback you can ever get. And I just really, really appreciate when clients give that. And I just love this job. I mean, every day when the door opens for me at the jail, I'm like, oh, I get to step through? Okay. And I just get so excited. I love it every day.
Oh, it's so amazing to have somebody so passionate about what they do in that career. Like, I really admire you.
We are constantly being asked when talking about therapy and different things like that. Do you, as a therapist, have a go to technique that you give to your clients to help them just deal with stressful situations? For example, some people do like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, identify five. Is it five things that you can see and then four things that you can touch or hear? Do you have something like that you recommend to your clients?
Absolutely. And for everyone who hasn't caught the episode with Carrie, she talks about all of that. Loved it. Brilliant. Everyone should go watch it. But I'm a big preacher of self-care. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anything else. If you're not getting adequate sleep, you can't wake up in the morning and feel like you're ready to take on the day, the challenges, to handle things like depression, anxiety, trauma, anything on top of that, if you are not in your best physical and mental state. So I love having people just take care of whatever is their physical needs, their emotional needs, their mental health needs. I'm very, very big on just stepping back and think about, do I need more water today? Do I need to actually make a meal because I haven't been able to get out of bed and eat something in days? Do I need to call a friend and just have some fun time having a conversation? So I'm absolutely a big advocate of that. And also just have a list of phone numbers, a list of phone numbers, a list of coping skills, distraction techniques, things you enjoy that you find fun that you can just access by just pulling out that paper. Keep it next to your bed and just look at it. And it just takes all the thinking out of coping skills, takes all the thinking out of your support system, and it just has the information right there on the sheet for you. So I definitely recommend anyone just make a little resource cheat sheet for yourself. Just have your supports, have the things that make you happy, have a list of easy meals you can make to make yourself feel like you're nurturing yourself. So I absolutely recommend self-care is one of the best things you can do that allows you to access more coping skills.
I love that idea of having your little list because there's times when your anxiety is so much that you're just like, I feel like my heart's going to burst. I'm going to have a aneurysm. Something's going to happen here. I can't focus. I can't think. But if I can just get to that piece of paper and look at it, it's going to tell me what to do. That's I don't have to think. It takes that whole aspect out of it. Or if I'm super depressed, okay, what am I supposed to do today? It's like, oh yeah, get out of bed, go drink some water, make a bowl of cereal. I don't have to think. It just tells me, and then I can go do that. And after a while, maybe it helps get me out of that bad crisis I'm in to where I can actually really start doing higher level steps. So I think that's so cool.
So, do you have a cheat sheet?
I do not. That's not something that I've heard up. Most everything else that you just said there, I'm just going like, yeah, I'm pretty sure my therapist, you and my therapist talked because you guys are saying the exact same things. But I didn't hear the cheat sheet one. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I think I'm going to go ahead and make one of those where, it's over the last few years. I've not often am I hitting the anxiety attacks anymore and those kinds of things. It still occasionally happens. Things can set stuff off where it does make it a little bit more difficult. And I'm usually able to avoid getting to the point where I feel like I need the cheat sheet. But the fact that just having it there is still really cool to where if I do ever hit that point, great. It's just one more thing that I don't have to worry about because I have someone, using air quotes for people that can't see the video here, I have someone or something telling me, here's how you can get out of this. So brilliant. Great advice.
Yes, that's brilliant. And for anyone that needs it, like go make that cheat sheet. I feel like I need it some days. Some days you just feel so overwhelmed. And I never thought of it like that until you just now said, actually make that sheet, write it out. Because when you're feeling so overwhelmed, it's hard to think straight. And I think even days like Aaron actually did this to me the other day. I was so stressed and I had a million things that I had to get done. And I was just like, almost so where it was like debilitating, and I just sat there and did nothing. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. And he's like, don't you have a lot to do today? And I'm like, yeah, and that's why I can't do anything. And he's like, okay, let's take a minute, like tell me about what you need to do. And writing that down would have done the same thing, but I was able to like, okay, I need to get this, I need to do this. And he's like, okay, let's go accomplish that. Like I had someone physically being like, okay, you're not gonna sit and avoid all your life problems because they're not gonna go away. But yeah.
So what are the most important things for that list for everybody listening? Everybody who's listening, find something to write this down right now so you can make your own list. Putting you on the spot, Britt.
Absolutely. No problem. First off, always have a list of numbers, whether it's family, friends, a therapist, a crisis line. Always have that as your number one. So you have somebody to reach out to. And if you are in a crisis, you have, whether it's a national hotline of some sort, a parent stress line, just have those numbers and be able to call them. And then after that, it could be like little reminders of a bowl of cereal. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I feel like I need to take a shower? Am I tired? And write those questions too. So that way you can go through in your head and ask yourself, so that way you can figure out what you need physiologically to get yourself feeling better. And then after that, little things like you can go to the dollar store and you can get little arts and crafts or the word search books and even put it with a list and write word searches, arts and crafts, going for a walk. You could even write play with a dog or a cat and take them for a walk. Or you could even say, you know what, today I'm going to go get some ice cream. Or even just little things like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Another favorite of mine is like a visualization activity where you sit there and it's very low energy, low effort for those really, really difficult days where you're just not wanting to get out of bed. And you visualize yourself doing the things that you want to accomplish and just walking yourself through it, imagining it in your mind. What would it look like if I were to get up and go to the grocery store today? And it's kind of like what a lot of professional sports players do when they're heading into a game. They like visualize the game and like all the things they're doing. So it actually works. Or even just envisioning a place that makes you happy, like a beach or a river or just any place that makes you feel calm. And just use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 senses and think, what would I be seeing there? What would it sound like if I was sitting there right now? So even just writing yourself prompts like that. A playlist. Most people have phones nowadays that they can go on YouTube and just make a playlist, happy songs. So even write down playlist on there and to prompt you to go into your phone. You can also just do other little things like take space. It could be a change of scenery. I've been in my bedroom all day. Let me now go to the living room. So just even little prompts to just get a change of scenery too. Or even maybe change your clothes or just something to just give that little bit of change. So I definitely suggest putting those on your list.
It's
Awesome.
amazing.
I absolutely love that. I want to take this time and thank Britt so much for joining us today on the podcast and giving us such amazing words of wisdom and techniques to help us cope with stressful events in our own lives. Do you have any final thoughts?
If we're ever out in Boston, you're going to have to give us a tour because I'm really excited to visit there.
I would love that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And thank you for everything that you do, just for the amazing work and being so passionate and willing to help others. We need more people like you in this world because it would be such a better place. So thank you again for everything.
Thank you so much. That means so much.
All right. We want to thank you guys for joining us on today's podcast. Again, my name's Aaron, Crystal, Joe, and Britt. We thank you guys and have a great day. Peace.
Peace. Max, really? He waited until the end to do the sound effect.
Where's the sound coming
Yeah.